I got involved in this movie back in 2014. The script came across my desk and I read it and I loved it immediately. Working on this project for 3 years before I actually had Nick attached to this project.
Score to Settle was a script that I thought had an extremely original concept. What put the hook in me was the relationship between Frank and Joey, Noah's character.
The only thing I thought about for every minute of every day since I got locked up was how much I wanted to bring you here, so please, please stay. You're all I got left.
Score to Settle is interesting in that it's got Nick in it. There's a lot of action scenes. And the flip side of that is it's really, I mean, the frame of it is a story about a father and his son, which is a totally kind of opposite thing in the same way. So I think you can expect a bit of both, which I think is a lovely thing.
I think this film is about relationships and mistakes that we make and how we try to redeem ourselves from the mistakes that we've done.
A Score to Settle is really a revenge tale that also has a redemptive theme to it, because what he discovers along the way in exacting revenge with different people that crossed his path years ago is that he also might need to find his humanity again too. And he does that by reconnecting with his son and making some discoveries about that relationship that he didn't know about before. But also he's got a very specific agenda. He's going to seek revenge for something that transpired years before.
It's an action movie. It's got some action, but at its core, it's really got a heart, and it builds to a really surprising end.
Frank is deeply haunted. He's somewhat, for lack of a better word, broken. He's been incarcerated for 19 years for what should have been 6 years, turned into 19 years, so you might as well call it life. He's lost touch with the outside world and predominantly lost touch with his son, which he very badly wants to repair and rekindle.
Joey is Frank's estranged son. He hasn't seen his dad in 19 years, so he's had more of his lifetime without his father than with him, which has its own host of issues.
Frank is suffering from something called fatal sporadic insomnia. It's a very rare condition where you can't sleep and then eventually you die because there's no treatment, there's no cure. So that's something that I'm playing with in terms of the through line.
Frank's journey is so sad and lonely, and it's nice when he and Joey, Noah and Nick hit it off really well, and obviously they have heavy interactions, but their lighter interactions brought some much needed joy to the picture.
I think that there have to be moments of joy, and there have to be moments of humor, and just bursting with the joy of life. And I think those scenes are the ones that are directly related to Frank and Joey, and a little bit with the Simone character.
When Frank shares with her who he is, there's a bit of a kindred spirit, there's an understanding of two people coming together that have a past and are maybe misunderstood. And there's a beautiful connection between them that happens.
We have a really, really spectacular cast, from bringing Nick on and Benjamin Bratt and Noah LeGros and Carolina Widra. I really do think that, we made some great choices.
And there's something about Noah, as soon as you saw him on tape the first time, you just knew this is Joey. And sometimes, that happens. Very rarely that happens, but in his case, we just knew that, he was the one.
So I play a character by the name of San Quentin, AKA Q. Q is an old friend of Frank Carver. In the landscape of the story, he's the one touchstone that Frank can return to. There's a reliability to him, I think. What we discover, though, is that there's something a little more complex at the heart of that relationship.
It's just really fun to watch two pros go at it, especially with the two of them in the same scene. There's just some magic happening. Frank, he goes to jail for 20 years and he comes back. He seeks out all these old buddies and goes after them. And you've got Jimmy the Dragon, who's a very distinct character. He's got tattoos. He's kind of a bad guy, and he knows that if Frank ever gets out of jail, that Frank's coming after him. And Tank knows that if Frank ever gets out of jail, he's coming after him. So you need really good actors to pull that off.
Tank's on the list. He's given up the gang life and he's got a straight job and he's just trying to hold things together. And I think he's kind of anticipating that he's got some comeuppance in his future.
I'm playing Jimmy the Dragon in the film. I'm pretty excited about it. I love the film from first time I read the script.
You know these movies when you get in a theater and you watch and there's no way you can predict not even one scene, which is really hard? This is our movie.
You have an idea of what you're going to get. Just check the title, A Score to Settle. You know Nick Cage is going to be out there kicking ass and taking names. And that's fun to watch, and that's what's going to bring people into the theaters, for sure. But I also think they're going to be surprised by other elements of the film that I can't really reveal right now. But among them, the humanity, the level of emotion, the heart, and again, this redemptive quality that is interwoven throughout the story alongside the vengeance that takes this particular genre and in a way kind of subverts it. It makes it something completely different.
At the end of the day, it's a story about a father and a son. You know, it's a story about a man who aches at the end of his life and longs for a relationship that isn't there anymore, and I hope that moves people.
I think making movies is one of the hardest businesses in the world, honestly. It really is. There's so many moving pieces and there's so many things that have to go right for everything to come together.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that I've worked with Nick Cage on a film called The Humanity Bureau a couple of years ago. You know, when this film was offered to me to look at, to me it kind of closed the deal when I knew that Nick was attached, and you know, it was a go.
Working with Nick, he's like very willing to take risks, which is like something I would like to be able to do. And it's just very freeing, very comforting to be with someone who's like confident enough in themselves and their ability and all that stuff to really go for it and commit fully to something.
Nick is a very complex performer. He brings to the table curiosity, a sense of ominous threat, and even, I think, surprisingly, a tenderness, which people won't necessarily expect in this story. But when it hits you, I think on some level it elevates the material.
I've always been someone that likes to find the music in the performance. So I like to riff. I like to shake it up a little bit and see, you know, are you gonna go with me? Are we gonna find something together that has that spark, that electricity? You know, like Benjamin today, I threw some things, some curveballs that weren't in the script, but he rolled with it. So that to me is what gives the film a little spark and also some detail.
It's always a joy to work with actors that make sure that, you know, they give so much of themselves, no matter whose side the camera's on, and that's been a very lovely experience.
Any good movie has a director behind it with a vision, and I think Sean knows what he wants. He's such a gentleman. He's, you know, easy to get along with. The crew love him. The cast really like him.
My relationship with Sean goes back to 2009. We collaborated together to work on a film called Beautiful Boy. That movie was critically acclaimed. You know, from that moment on, Sean and I always wanted to collaborate again.
Sean, I think he knows exactly what he wants, but I think he understands it's a collaborative process. He's kind of got that nice balance of being open to try things, but has a clear idea of what he wants and can guide you and kind of push you in the right direction.
I guess I come from a place where I have my vision of what I think the movie is, from the writing to this point, and then to a certain extent I have to let that go, because whoever I think Frank is, for example, won't be exactly who Nick thinks Frank is, and I have to let that go because he's going to be Frank. He is Frank. And similarly with camera, I might have an idea of how it is and I'm communicating with Mark, but when you're actually in the location, Mark the DP, when you're actually in the location and you're actually in the constraints of a room that's only this big and, you know, things change. It's about everybody bringing their visions together to find this one whole.
And cut. Working with Sean Koo is great. You know, he's a very interesting director, very subliminal, and he lets you really do your job. We're really melding and it's a good team.
It's just really great to have Mark involved because, you know, it's kind of like, you know, that side is going to be taken care of. You know it's going to look amazing, and that's a big, big relief for a producer to have that kind of, you know, that kind of quality department in behind the look of the film.
So just behind me, we're at one of our main locations. Being in the Okanagan at peak tour season, it's sort of hard to find a hotel to shoot at. So what we've managed to do is split up our exterior and interior locations. So we're at our interior hotel. We've managed to find this beautiful home. On the inside, it looks like a gorgeous, classic hotel. So we really lucked out.
You know what's been very surprising? I've never worked in Canada. The crew is so efficient, so nice. Everything has just been going so smoothly, and everyone's so professional. It's just been such a joy. Really quiet on set. Everyone's really respectful. It's incredible. It's just like everything is just going really well. So that's been like a big, huge surprise for me, and it's been really nice.
What I loved about it is the action scenes. Definitely had the pleasure working with Nick Cage and the whole cast. Actually, they're amazing.
And I really appreciate what all the makeup artists and everybody here, Jimmy the Dragon, so it's basically his dragon tattoo. It's all over his body. They did a great job. It took quite some time to do that. It's not an easy process, and never had tattoo before. This is my first time.
I mean, the car thing for sure was like, I don't know, this is just interesting, I guess, about movies in general. Like, you read like an eighth of a page, and it's like they ride around in the car, and it's like, you have like an idea of that in your head, and you're like, oh, that'll be fun or whatever, but you kind of like, oh, I have to like focus on this other stuff more. And then you get to it, and it's like this crazy whole, and I mean, I remember there was a moment when I was sitting, we shot some stuff before, and then we got in the car, and then I was just sitting there, and like we took the traction control off, and I was like, wow, this is happening. And it was this bizarre thing of like being in this amazingly nice car with Nick. It reminded me of like when I was a kid, like doing donuts in parking lots with my friends.
I've always been a big enthusiast of the Corvette, and they wanted me to do the donuts, and I wasn't, to be perfectly honest, I wasn't sure if I could do it because it's been, I don't know how many years since I did Gone 60 Seconds, but once I got into it and I turned the wheel to the left and just jumped on and took the traction control off, then it just all came back to me and I could glide a little bit, and that was a lot of fun.
That was definitely like a sort of pinch yourself, sort of surreal moment where you're like, that was something for sure.
I like a calm set, and we all are here to create a great movie, from Nick down to the people who are cleaning up the trash after we leave a set. Everybody is just invested, and of course things go wrong, and of course tensions are high, because that's just the nature of this.
We have, 110 scenes to shoot in 3 weeks. You have to really be on point, and you have to know your dialogue, and there's no room for error. And everyone has to be on it. All the actors have to be on it, the crew has to be on it, and we have to move to get it done.
When the producers come back and they're saying, oh, the dailies, they look great, and everybody's kind of excited about what you're doing, then you feel pretty good. But there's no reward. It's like a hard day's work and on to the next day. And you feel good when you do hard work. If it was easy, I don't think it'd be as much fun.
You planning on getting revenge?
What? No.
You don't often get scripts when you read them, and then at the last few pages of the actual reading the script, you go, wow. And that's what happened to me in this particular film.
I know that what we're trying to, or in the process of doing right now, is to deliver something that will make you feel something very deeply, and hopefully be something that you've never really seen before. That will compel you and inspire you to have multiple viewings.
As a producer, you want to create a product that you're going to be proud of and that people are going to enjoy. I think it's going to be an emotional ride with a few twists and turns that people just aren't going to expect.
It's a father and son story, a love affair really between a father and a son, and their effort to reconnect to one another.
It's a score to settle with everyone else, but it's with Frank, right? He has to come to terms with himself, and I think at the end of the day, it's hopeful in that if you can find, peace within yourself, you can make through whatever it is. But it's tragic in the sense that, there's a lot of pain and a lot of loss, and there are certain things, no matter how hard you try, you're just never going to get back.
I like characters that raise more questions than answers. They have a longer shelf life. You could look into this any way you want. That's really up to the audience. Is Joey a ghost? Is Joey a hallucination as a result of this condition that Frank has? Or is Joey really there in some ways?
They never touch, and Joey never handles anything physically with Frank. And we're trying to do that very subtly, so there's always this slight separation. Whenever Joey's there, there's a little more white in the frame. You know, he's got white shirt. The exposures will be a little hotter in the final color timing of that. So not trying to give the audience away, but it's just those subtle things, you know, that there's no real connection with them.
The more I thought about it, the more I thought that this man is conjuring this kid up to work through issues that in their relationship. You know, I feel like it's the sad stories of people who have problems with a loved one and they turn away and don't get to resolve it in any way, and then that person dies, and I feel like they never get a chance to resolve any of these pains and regrets they have. And so I thought it was that guy, you know, who had really done something that really pained him, and he was never able to resolve it in any way, and he had to work through it, and that, I thought that was a beautiful story.
My point of view is that there's nothing more tragic than a person who's in a tragic situation and knows it, than a person who's in a tragic situation and doesn't know it. That's what really tears my heart, is when I see people going like this, but they're really like, we're going like this, you know, we're crying, because they're not wallowing in their despair. They're trying to live joyfully, even though it's pretty rotten what's going on in their lives.